Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Prancing Pony Podcast Plays. Thank you so much for your patience as we worked behind the scenes to get today's special working. I want you to know that I am excited to be joined today by Fornad from ArdaCraft, who's going to walk us through some of the amazing details in that game. And hopefully later, we'll also be joined by my co-hosts at the end of the PPP season, James Tauber, the Sage of the South. We'll see if he actually is able to make it or not, but that is the plan. So in the meantime, welcome everybody, and thank you again for understanding the last couple of weeks as I traveled, family travel and Mythmood and all that kind of stuff. So looking forward to getting this thing rolling. So first, let me go ahead and bring Jack in. Welcome, Jack.
Hello, Alan, and hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here on the PPP Plays. I know I've been on the channel once before with one of the Fandom Fridays, but I'm really looking forward to the opportunity today to get a bit more in depth with the work we've been doing and really, get into some of the nitty-gritty details that I think your audience will appreciate.
Yeah, I think so as well. Nate, I don't know if somebody else mentioned that, but yeah, somehow my camera got defaulted to mirror, which I actually don't like. I know that's nice for some things, but I don't prefer that. I want it to look like it actually looks. So, Erwin, hey, good to see you live. Well, good to see you live in the chat. All right, well, we'll give James a couple more minutes. Let's talk a little bit, Jack, about what it is. Well, let's go ahead and get ArdaCraft up and running. How's that? Why don't we just do that? Let me switch over. Let's get that going here. Give me a minute. All right.
Oh, James just messaged me. He just finished his segment.
Okay, so we'll see him in a couple minutes. That's great. All right. Well, while we are, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the chat overlay because, wow, this should be as big on your screen as you can possibly get. Tell us a little bit about ArdaCraft itself, maybe what it is for those who aren't familiar with it at all, and then I'll ask some questions about like kind of how you got where you're at. But let's start with just what it is.
Yeah, what it is. It's a big question, and we'll be answering that over the course of today, maybe future streams. But in a nutshell, ArdaCraft is the largest and most detailed recreation of Middle-earth ever made. We're doing it in Minecraft, as many people will be aware, but we have heavily modified and edited the game to kind of bring it up to the standards that we need to recreate this world at the highest fidelity level.
So no zombies running around, no 12-year-olds saying chicken jockey.
Precise. I mean, as far from that as we can possibly get, basically. So that's kind of the aim, and we've been going for the last 10 years. We've completed
10 years. Wow.
10 years. Yeah. So it is a mega project in every sense of the word. Massive international team of about 30 to 40 people, loads of really talented and interested people, and I think, well, as we'll get into today, it's just a new way of, I think, introducing Tolkien's world to people who a lot of the time have never even seen the movies, let alone read the books. So all of this is to say that, it's a really ambitious project. It's a really interesting project. And there are lots of different elements of it that I think different people will have interests in, whether it's music, geology, botany, architecture, historical references, all that stuff.
All right. Well, speaking of people with ambitious projects, I've just heard a little beep that James Tauber is here. So welcome, the Sage of the South. How are you, sir?
I'm going well, thank you.
It's good to have you join us today. This is going to be a lot of fun. Mostly because I can sit back and just like be the person who navigates the game world while you two talk, and I can just chill. So yeah,
we'll handle it. We'll handle
do my
it.
work for me. All right. Well,
It's an
before
easy
we
one
get
for
into
you
the
to do.
game, I have to just say these screenshots that are cycling through are breathtaking. Maybe tell us as they pop up, talk about maybe a couple of these locations, where they are in the game world, and then we'll maybe, then we'll hop in and we'll actually look around and see some things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the intention of this really is just to give people a bit of a flavor of the world
Yeah.
before they first join, basically, and to give you a sense of this, the depth and the breadth of locations that we have on the server. So some of these are locations that will be very familiar to people, big ones, Argonath, Helm's Deep, all these things I've seen come up. But some of them are a bit more obscure. That one there is the forest around Halathirian, so where Elendil was buried.
Ooh. So those are the White Mountains we were seeing. This, of course, Dunharrow.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So that's almost directly taken from Tolkien's drawing of it, which you guys will have seen. That's the Misty Mountains looking south from Rivendell. But yeah, so it's a sense to give you a sense of, the world is enormous, but also, as we will find today, lots and lots of details in all these locations. And that's
excellent. That's going to be fantastic. Really. And that, of course, the Golden Hall of Meduseld right there in Edoras.
Absolutely.
Well, James, what, you and I actually haven't had a chance to talk about this particular project today. I know that Jack's been working with you. What are you going to be basically kind of walking us through some of these locations? Maybe what's your involvement with ArdaCraft, or are you involved? Are you like me, just going, hey, wow, this looks interesting?
I'm mostly on that. I mean, I've been a fan for a while. There's two things that I think are amazing about this, maybe three broad things that I want to say about this project. That just I admire so much. One of them is just purely in terms of Minecraft worlds and so on. This is just an incredible, even if you know nothing about Lord of the Rings, right? Yeah. Just as a fan of Minecraft, this is just remarkable. But the two other things I really want to highlight that I love about this, and I could say a little bit about why I'm excited to have some involvement moving forward. One is just the attention to detail on the Tolkien side.
Yes.
Just the and this really ties to why I'm excited about this in relation to the Digital Tolkien project, is that ArdaCraft is taking so much care in tying it to the texts and Tolkien's description in the texts, Tolkien's drawings and so on. And so you can so easily go from, or will be able to go from, a particular paragraph in the text and say, let me see it as it's described, right? They're not having to make any compromises like a film would have to do or anything like that. It's like, I mean, there are some compromises I'll let scale wise. I'm sure we'll come to that. But other than that, it's such a faithful reproduction of the way things are described in the text. And one of the reasons that excites me from a Digital Tolkien perspective point of view is we're also similarly trying to have such a rich annotation of the text and tie into the text and so on. And so all the work that ArdaCraft is doing to tie locations to the text overlaps with work that we want to do as well, in terms of that relationship between where are they at an exact point in the text. And so one of the things that Fornad and I have talked a lot about is how can we make sure that we don't duplicate effort? Let's make sure that anything that we're doing to build databases of locations and stuff like that work with what they're doing. Any coordinate systems that we're building work with them, so that anything that you do in the Digital Tolkien project and in ArdaCraft kind of interoperates in a way. So the attention to detail on the text is just mind-blowing. The other thing I want to bring up, and we can get into it in the discussions as well, that just amazes me so much, is the attention to detail in the sort of the authenticity around things like geology and botany and so on. They're taking so much effort to understand what kinds of rock formations would you get in a particular region, what kind of flora would you get in a particular region, what's the climate like, so what kind
the different
of trees,
biomes that would be in place in a real world.
It's I cannot speak highly enough about just how impressed I am by the whole approach that the ArdaCraft project is taking. So
that's amazing. Well, let's go ahead and get into it, folks. I did see a couple of people mentioning the echo. We're trying to resolve that right now, obviously, with 3 different levels, and you know, it can be that way. Let me just make sure, Jack, you're using earphones or headphones, right? I don't, because you're not on a camera, I can't see.
I am, yes. I
Okay,
am.
then it might just be some leakage from mine. I've turned down my headset, so hopefully that'll work. I've also turned down James's mic, because sometimes when it gets a little hot, we can get a little bit of an echo. So let me know if there is a problem, or let Katie know, and she'll ping me with the chat. So let's go ahead and hop into the game. So Jack, when I get to this screen, as tempted as I am as a single player to click on single player, that's not what I do, is it?
No, you click
No.
join server.
Join server. All right. I love this intro page, the close up of that text page from the book. All right.
Yeah, so that's actually my own copy of the Lord of the Rings sorry, I'm just bringing you to the main one now. That's
this is where you're fixing it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I just took with my phone a while ago, but it works out quite well.
Okay.
So yeah, so welcome. This is our spawn. So this is basically
get past the person there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So this is basically where all new players join. You can see there's basically a little bit of an intro text. There is, you know, a map. If you go a little bit further forward there, there is a map there, which basically shows you kind of the current state of our map. Basically,
those areas that are shaded in the northeast and southeast, are those areas are still in progress, or is that, what's that indicate?
I think that's just a visual bug, actually.
Oh, just that's fair.
Yeah,
bugs happen.
So yeah, bugs happen, and that's kind of one of the parts of the project that I can talk about today. Actually, is the whole development side of things, because we are doing things with this game that this game was never intended to do. So you know, there's all sorts of issues there, but all part of the fun. But yes, so that is the ArdaCraft map. As you can see, it is the northwest of Middle Earth. We've got the islands of Beleriand up there in the northwest, and then it goes all the way down to kind of the latitude of Umbar and a little bit below in the south. And the reason for that was pretty simple. Any further beyond that, and you start to get into the territory of fan fiction pretty quickly.
I mean, you're already sort of in that territory by the time you get out to like the Sea of Rune or Far Harad. Yes. All right.
Yeah, precisely. So those are the bounds, and frankly, it's enough.
Yeah, it is enough.
There's some really good comparison images that we have, but if you go back and look at the map again, I don't know if you've ever played Skyrim. That's a really good point of comparison. The Skyrim map could fit inside Gorgoroth there on the map. So the
okay. The entire Skyrim map. It's huge.
Yes.
Okay.
So to give you
so
a sense
if we were to walk, let's say I was to walk from that little bit of is that the Bay of Forachel at the very north that we're seeing the southern end of that? Okay. If I were to walk from that little inlet of the Bay of Forachel all the way south to, let's say,
to Mordor.
To Mordor.
Because
one does not simply walk there.
Exactly.
How long would it take me in game time to walk that far?
From Forachel, I mean, if I had to
guess, ballpark it, right?
12 hours. Let's say 12 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So the game is
really
huge.
Depends.
The map is gigantic.
And of course it depends how long you spend wandering around each location, because I'm sure you get distracted by, oh, look, here's Starbad or whatever. But yeah,
me, I am never distracted. I never do sidebars. I never. Yeah.
Give it the full Corey Olsen treatment and take about 20 weeks.
20 years. Yeah. If you're going to give it the full Corey Olsen treatment. That's right. Okay. Well, very cool. Let's go ahead and there you are. Hello. So this is like sort of an introductory area that shows you with some graphic overlays, like the various things you can do, like how to build or take a look at guides and information, or we can just go straight to the map and explore. And is this hall modeled after anything in particular?
So well, we'll see in a moment that it's very much modeled after a certain location, but it's a little bit, obviously, if you go to this location in real life, funnily enough, there won't be signs about ArdaCraft everywhere.
Yeah, I figured that would be the case. Yeah,
we haven't quite reached that level yet, but we will. You know, maybe in a few years' time.
So signs about how to get involved.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
How to join the team. Maybe some frequently asked questions that people tend to have, and it's really just a kind of little introductory area to give people a sense of things. Now, The reality is, because people never read anything, is that people tend to blast through this area in about 2 seconds and then ask us all the questions in chat anyway.
Oh, there we go. So our completed map is a scale of 1 to 58. It'll be 50,000 by 45,000 blocks. Wow.
Yes, which is a block is roughly a meter, so it's big. It's
huge.
It's big.
Okay.
And yeah, so you have
space is big. My box is really huge, actually. You might think it's a long way down to the chemist. That's peanuts. ArdaCraft.
So Fornad, I don't know if now's a good opportunity, but at some point, do you want to talk about the scale choice that you made?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we could. I mean, yeah. There's multiple points, I suppose, where we could bring it up. I'm just.
I saw it mentioned. I saw it mentioned on the panel. There was a mention of the.
Did you teleport me without my permission? I did not consent to being teleported.
I just want to bring you out to the courtyard to show you where we are and see if anyone can get.
Okay, now it looks familiar.
Yeah.
So it's going to be one of the Okay, because they filmed some of the Tolkien biopic here, didn't they?
I think yes. I think you're right.
This is Merton.
Yes, they did.
This is Merton. Actually, if you go to the other side of the courtyard and turn around, you can see the chapel.
Because I think this was where Tolkien laid down on the grass in the biopic, looked up, and did his Hail Earendil, Brightest of Stars thing.
Right.
Although that should have been Exeter. I can't remember where they actually filmed it, but yeah.
But there you go. So if you turn around here, you can see the college.
Oh, Merton College Chapel is Merton College Church dedicated to St. Mary John the Baptist. Oh wow. Okay, that's pretty impressive. Now, that's not actually is that on the map somewhere?
No. So we're in a kind of separate world right now. It's kind of like a lobby area, we call it.
So if we were to draw a parallel, it would be we're in the world between the forest between the worlds in Lewis's.
Exactly.
So we're looking for various ponds that will take us to different places. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of the idea. You kind of step from our world to Merton in Minecraft to suddenly ArdaCraft. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so we can go. We can run back through to the world now. You can see actually there's Tolkien art all over the walls. So there's one.
Yeah, I've noticed them already. I saw Bilbo comes to the raft huts of the elves when I was walking out. Okay, so these are like the tools and things.
Yeah, there's
for people who are more interested in building the world.
Correct.
I am overwhelmed by that. Oh look, it's the hall at Bag End, residence of Bilbo Baggins Esquire.
So all these sorts of little references all over the place.
And this is why when I look at the clock on the wall there, that Tolkien himself drew, there is no question that the hobbits are technologically advanced.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the these sort of technological questions are one of the many things that we have to answer and think about as we go through the world. So let's go through here. So this is the main route to the map. This kind of gives you a sense of what to do. So you can hold the Pathfinder in your hand.
Okay.
Gold piece.
And then right click and it'll. Oh, I see. And then I can choose somebody's path.
Correct.
Oh, very interesting. Okay.
And we'll have a look. We'll have a look at that when we get into.
And then you can select. If they have different chapters.
If you just select default, you should see the little golden. So if you bring that up again, and select the default chapter there.
I see.
So first path and then default. Yeah, you should. Yeah, there you go.
And then return to path.
Will appear. Yeah, and then that will just bring you to.
And it brings me a little. I see, and then we see some more of his art, some more about the world, and then we can warp to various places.
Correct. So let's head in. But James, I think we'll step out into Bag End and we'll look at the horizon, and I can talk briefly about the choice of scale in this world, because I think that is certainly an interesting question.
That's weird. Now I'm not walking so much as I'm sort of hovering, apparently.
Yes, if you...
shift. Okay, there we go.
You can land again.
So
if you wander through...
the round green door with the big brass knob in the middle.
Wall, by the way, you just... the clock is next to you there.
Of course it is, because you did it based on the drawing with the basket of umbrellas. Yep. That's great.
These are all the details that are obviously impossible in the default game. We'll see how the guests popping in here, by the way, because this is obviously.
Oops, didn't mean to do that. How do I get rid of that? Just escape. Okay.
Escape. There you go.
Oh goodness. Good morning. It is a morning to be good on.
He had a good view, did Bilbo. Well appointed. You see why the cycle packages were so keen.
So is this where I get to hit the space bar thing and fly up?
Oh yeah, yeah. If you want to, go ahead. You can look over the Shire as it is, and so what you're seeing now is, I mean, we can talk about a little bit about the development history of the map, but the ability to see this far is a relatively recent development. It's only something that's happened within the last year or so. So
really able to see quite far, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, those are the north moors in that direction. Those sort of hills you can see on the horizon there.
Wow.
Yeah, a fun thing you can actually do is press X, and that allows you to zoom in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So
if I go
X, you can. There you go.
So what mountains are those that I'm looking at there with the snow on the top?
Those are the touch of the Blue Mountains, just the very.
Oh, so I get it. I'm looking to the northwest then.
Okay. South
or south.
Those are the
southwest. Yeah.
Southwest. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then those are the white towers, actually. Just
the Imen Baride. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Tower Hills over there.
Yeah, and then the world curvature means that you can't see any further beyond the.
I see.
Beyond the
and
edge.
so if we headed off in that direction, we'd end up at like Evendim and Anuminous at some point.
Yeah. That's all up there.
Jack, I've had a couple folks in the chat. Apparently, when you talk softly, your mic just cuts out altogether. So be sure that you're bold and forward and brash to match James and me in our over-the-top styles. Bombast.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll get a bit closer to the mic as well. Hopefully that will help.
Okay. That will, yeah.
So, yeah. So again, to circle back to this question of scale. So the map is at 1 to 58, meaning for every one block or meter in our world, there would be 58 meters on the sort of one-to-one map. Obviously, that doesn't apply to locations, so we're not building tiny buildings, right? But what it does mean is that when you go from place to place, the distances are reduced. Now, this scale was picked because essentially what we wanted was a world that would feel large and extensive and kind of true to the the size of Middle Earth that you get from the books, but equally one that was not completely impossible for us to do.
Right.
So there are a few places where you do notice the scale a little bit. I would say the place where it's maybe most noticeable at the moment would be the distance between Minas Tirith and Osgiliath, because even on the one-to-one map, those places are actually genuinely just quite close together, right? There's only a day's ride.
So they're really close together on this map then.
Yes. So there's places where it's noticeable, but I would say that the overall effect, and maybe of course I'm biased, but I would say the overall effect is still quite successful. Yeah. And you're able to, wander around Middle Earth. As I said, it takes you hours to get around, and it still feels like a big, extensive world.
Well, let's talk about, since we have, an hour and a half, let's talk about where we might want to go ahead and visit in game today.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, so obviously we started off here in Hobbiton, and if you fly down to the mill itself, you can look back up and see that sort of iconic view of double tap space bar to bring yourself up.
There we go.
Just like
I was not timing the double tap well at all.
No. This is having played Minecraft for 10 years, assuming that everyone knows how to play the game.
So I'm just flying over the Shire right now.
Yeah. So if you look back if you fly down to the river, basically, or I can actually just teleport you there to the right.
I can just look at the river. There it is, down by the mill, right?
Yeah. And then you go
because there's the mill
back towards Hobbiton. Yeah, there's the mill. Absolutely. So you'll know the watercolor that Tolkien did.
Yeah.
That shows you kind of all of the buildings in Hobbiton across the water. But yes, obviously here today we are here in Hobbiton. This area is an interesting one because this is an area that this is where we started back in 2014. So this is where we started building the map, but it has undergone what we call a revamp since then.
Okay.
And this is a kind of big part of the server's history in some ways, because and just the way that we think and do things, because there's always a fine tightrope to walk between.
Yeah.
Over time, we have developed both our own abilities, also all of the things that we can add to the world, the actual quality of the blocks, models, textures, all that stuff. Everything improves, and our building techniques improve, and our research techniques improve, and everything improves with time. But equally, we can't go back and redo everything, right? So we have to...
Yeah. At some point, you have to be done with a spot.
Yes, exactly. So the Shire is a good example of that, whereby we did V1, you could say, back in sort of 2014, 2015 time, and then a few years later, sort of 2019, 2020-ish, we went through and revamped the Shire to kind of bring it up to more modern standards. And these, I mean, we can talk about this today, but these are things that may not be immediately obvious to people who haven't spent 10 years doing it, but it's funny because we get some guests going around our really old locations and they're like, wow, this is fantastic. And we're like, no, they're terrible. Please don't look at them. You know, I'm sure you're familiar with this from, you know, having done a podcast for all this time. You know, you probably look back at your old episodes and think, gosh, what was I thinking? Whatever.
Oh, you know, how many times do I say season 1 is kind of iffy the whole time? But you know, then I hear people go, I loved it. It was great. I'm like, yeah, but it could have been so much better. I love how you've done these little translucent blocks that represent the smoke coming up from the chimneys. That's cute. And I'll tell you, it's funny. You know, being somebody who's grown up around video games and having played Pong, I've long since been like, Minecraft never appealed to me because it's blocky. It's just, you know, it's pixel art. It's voxel. It's not, you know, it's low res. I look at this and I don't see that anymore. I mean, I do see the blocks, but I have to say that the water in the game is gorgeous. That's not blocky at all. Yeah,
I mean, we like I said, it's as you say, it is still kind of voxely, and it does have an art style that's not, you know, photorealistic. Obviously,
yeah, nobody's going to mistake this for Unreal Engine 5. Yeah.
Exactly, but it gets a lot closer to something where you can go, okay, I can see through it a little bit and see what the real location would be like in a much more true to life way than as you say, the normal game.
How much has the underlying game engine changed in the 11 years that you've been working on this?
So you get sheep
sound effects,
so the underlying game, I mean, so to get a little bit technical, basically we started out with something that was barely different to vanilla, but just with edited textures. So the textures themselves look different, but the underlying thing was basically the same. Now we have a mod that adds something in the region of, I don't know what the number is, but it's something like 18,000 extra blocks to the game. And what that enables us to do is a lot of what you're seeing in front of you. So one of the big updates we had recently, for example, is the trees. You can see that if you fly into the trees a little bit and look at them in detail, so if you fly like maybe down and into them, you'll see that they are made up of branches and all sorts of things.
I just jumped down too far.
Ahead of you there.
Yeah.
So that is obviously very far from being possible in the normal game.
Yes,
so
it doesn't look anything like Minecraft. Vanilla Minecraft,
exactly. So it's just a kind of slightly pixelated real tree, and we can talk about trees later, actually. But yeah, so it has changed a lot to the point that it is, as you say, almost unrecognizable, and people sometimes mistake us for different games at this point when we show screenshots of it online. So there's all sorts.
All right, well, let's head to some familiar places. Maybe
absolutely
one of the inns perhaps here, and or maybe we should. I don't know. I'll let you take us. Be our tour guide, Jack.
No, absolutely. So what I would like to show you.
Hold on a minute. I'm seeing the screen is not working right now. Hold on a minute.
That's right.
I don't know what just happened.
While you're sorting that out, Alan, I can continue to ask questions.
Yeah.
So Fornad, you mentioned sort of how you can see the further distance so much more now. That was presumably an update to the underlying engine as well. The ability to see that extra distance.
That's not good. Sorry, guys. My apologies.
No, that's all right. So one of the great advantages of Minecraft as a game is that because it's the most popular game of all time by some distance, you have an enormous development and modding community outside of ArdaCraft who are constantly working on all sorts of interesting updates for the game, right? So one of those things would be the shaders, so the lighting you just saw, the realistic water, all that stuff is being done outside of our own project by other modders. And the distant views that you were seeing, it's a separate mod called Distant Horizons, which until about 2 or 3 years ago, people basically thought that was impossible. But the way that it works is essentially the further away things get, the less detailed that they are. And that's
so it's doing level of detail. Isn't that called level of detail or something? There's
correct. We call them LODs, LODs, level of detail. Correct. So That's something that was never in the base game and still isn't in the base game, but some extremely talented, smart people worked out how to implement that. And then they also worked out how to implement that with the realistic lighting we were just seeing. And those two things together it's hard to say how much they've revolutionized the way that we look at our world and the way that we are able to appreciate it, because there are so many of these enormous landscape level features, right? Like the Blue Mountains or the Misty Mountains, or looking from Minas Tirith to the Mountains of Mordor, that were basically just impossible in the past. I mean, there was really just no way for us to do that at all, unless you wanted to like destroy your PC, essentially. So it's hard to overstate how much of an impact it's had, and I'm it's very excited to see just what it can do. What I'm going to bring you to now, Alan, is let me see if I can just get.
So you're going to again teleport me without my permission.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 2 seconds. Actually, if you just type in, it's probably easier to show it. So if you just type in warp, it's OG and then Bree, so BREE, all one word. Because I want to show you here. I want to talk a bit about the development history of ArdaCraft. So this is 2023,
actually.
Yeah, exactly. So this is our original Bree. And what I'll do is I'll show you this briefly, and then I will
take us
show
to
you
the
on
new
new Bree.
Okay.
Absolutely,
So before we go in, where in Bree are we when we come into Bree? Is this the West Gate?
So this is the West Gate. Yeah, this is the West Gate. And yeah, you can. So it's funny because this may look fine to people.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's okay. And so for us, well, going on 10 years ago now, this was okay as well. But you'll see ways in which it massively improved in the future. So
this feels really, I mean, this feels a little bit like Lord of the Rings Online. I mean, I'm walking up a very familiar street because they've done such a good job. Do you take a look at other adaptations like that? Other games that do stuff in this world? I mean, I guess Lotro is probably the obvious one that comes to mind. What sort of inspiration do you take from that? Or do you just sort of like, hey, I'm not even going to pollute my mind with other sources. I'm just going to do my own thing.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We started out being very much inspired by lots of other sources, and these obviously included the films themselves, but other sources as well. Lotro, I think, has come up in conversations over the years. But I would say that over time we have become, and we'll talk about this more, but over time we have become more and more interested in real historical architecture and real places.
That's fair.
We have taken more and more from those and less from other adaptations. And to be fair, I think that's kind of something that's fairly in line with Tolkien himself, right? Because the distinction I always see between what we might say is modern fantasy and Tolkien is that modern fantasy is often very self-referential, whereas Tolkien was very much go back to the original, go back to the Eddas, go back to the sagas. And I think that's kind of the attitude that we've developed over time as well, is real history is often just as, if not actually many times more interesting than anything we could come up with kind of natively ourselves.
That's fair.
So, and that's where we land.
I've got a question. I'm assuming I shouldn't even be able to see those things that I'm looking at off in the distance that look like something out of a sci-fi film.
Later. That's our tree grid. So that's where all of our trees are being stored. So this Bree is it's in a little archive area, we'll say. So it's surrounded by random other things floating around in the sky. This is not on the main world at all,
right? Because it's an old version.
Correct. We just kept it as a kind of nostalgia thing, and I think
like you would keep old photos, you know,
like you keep old photos. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm thinking old sets in the basement of a theater. You know, you go down to the basement of a theater and you see the old sets.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense. So that's why things are floating around. This isn't some unusual take on Middle Earth. You know, we just got floating worlds. Okay.
Precisely.
I had a question in the chat that's actually a pretty solid one. It was when are we set in the game? Is this around the time of, because you know the world changes, right? So where in the timeline is ArdaCraft set?
So ArdaCraft is set in September of 3006, and actually the fun thing is if you press G, that will bring up the time. So you see that 300609. So that is our precise date. I can talk a little bit about why we have implemented that date in game. It's to do with our star map and our sun.
Okay.
Much more accurate to when.
So it's roughly 9 years before, or 8 years before Frodo headed out, I think.
12
Let's see, no,
years
3018.
before?
So 12 years. Yeah, my bad. I couldn't do the math.
Yeah, 12 years before, and then about 5 years after Bilbo's party.
Yeah.
So the reason we picked that date was basically we could trust that all of the descriptions in Lord of the Rings are basically accurate.
That's fair.
You know, there wouldn't be a massive amount of change, but equally things aren't actively on fire. The War of the Ring has not really kicked off yet, and so it's in that kind of perfect little point where we can say, okay, this is it's exactly it's so it could have been. It's not, there isn't a specific reason. It could have been 3004. It could have been 3009. But
the idea was not to set it in 3019, where it might then become, things would change. You'd be like, oh, now I have to go in The Prancing Pony by Barnum and Butterbur.
Yes.
Or by the Man of the West and whichever co-host is with them at the given time.
So the thing to do here will be to kind of have a little, maybe people have photographic memories. Just remember how this looked and how this looks currently.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do now is take you to the Newbury, and it'll be interesting to get a sense of how different things are, and maybe some of the similarities where the lore obviously doesn't change,
right?
But our take on it changes. So if you just type in Warp Bree now, which will bring you to
Warp Bree.
Yeah, just simple as that.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah. So here we are. So immediately you can see updated trees, for example, those branch blocks I was talking about. Those are all in place. There's a few other major updates here. Everything is just a lot, I would say, smoother in terms of textures and gradients.
Yeah.
So a big part of the building aspect that we have to look at is if you look at the road here, just down in front of you, you can see how we have to deliberately blend the textures on the ground with each other in a kind of gradiented fashion. So you can see it goes from dark to light.
Yeah.
And that is a huge part of what we're doing is thinking about that on roofs, on walls, on cliff sides, everywhere, because nature doesn't have these hard lines. So we have to think about that kind of constantly. So that is a big update from how we used to do things. Another thing is that the ground is a lot smoother. You can see there aren't those big jumps.
The jumps are a lot smaller.
Exactly.
And there are more blocks in the homes. Like they don't look as like this home in the original Bree would have had like 4 blocks up each side of the roof instead of 12 or so. Yeah. So they were larger blocks.
So it's yes, we're using smaller blocks, more detail, and just a lot more, and it just feels a lot truer to life.
It really does. I mean, first of all, I'm able to see the stone a lot better. Like I'm looking at the river stone that makes up the most of the first floor there, the exterior of the Prancing Pony.
We lost you again, Alan.
Oh, we lost the game again. Yep. That may be a repeating problem. I don't know why it's happening. What solved it last time was just deconnect. Let's see if I can do that again. Now that I know what it was.
Well, if you have another question, James, this might be the time.
So, in terms of textures, how much of the texture development is done in-house versus you're able to use?
That's weird. It's an
libraries?
HDMI handshaking problem. I have no idea how to solve that or get around it.
Okay,
I have other games that do that. That's why I can't play the Lego Lord of the Rings, because it won't work with the HDCP with it. The handshaking with the HDMI won't work. So, all right. Sorry about that. Technical problem.
No worries at all. From a texture perspective, yeah. So there's ArdaCraft's relationship with the mod itself is kind of interesting. Where the mod that we use is called Conquest Reforged. It's like an external mod developed by external developers. But because we are the oldest and largest project to use it, our embedding with that team is pretty significant. We share a lot of common people, and so what we're able to do is essentially create quite a lot of our own textures that we implement just for us, and then we also work on textures that get shared from all users of that. So everyone who's using this building mod to do whatever they want, not just Middle Earth. So there's a mixture of things there, and often our priorities when it comes to Middle Earth. So for example, everyone using that mod, no matter what project you're doing, will have Malorn leaves and Malorn bark.
Doing it again. Sorry, folks. My apologies. Rode, by the way, is just the brand of the hardware that it's the Rode Streamer X. I don't know why it's having so much trouble with HDMI handshake. we may have some problems. I don't know. All right.
Well, I was gonna say I could share my screen if that would. I don't know if that would.
If we need to, yeah. If it happens again, we'll try that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So basically, it means that that we have influenced the mod, and mod has influenced us. There's been a bit of back and forth between us, but in the end, we are all working together, and that development team is very much interested in seeing ArdaCraft succeed.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's very useful from that perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can really see our Distant Horizons mod kicking in here. By the way, you can see the South Downs to the south of Bree there, and you can see the Barrow Downs behind you. So you can see the menhirs, right? Is that the word? The rocks on the Barrow Downs there off in the distance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, now I want to go check out the Barrow Downs.
Well, it's all there. You can see the farmland. You can see the town itself of Bree. But yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and head into the Prancing Pony here.
Please.
And let's see what we got, because you said let's take a look and see what's different. Oh, that's the horses. This is the actual entrance.
That's the one. Oh, you may need to take the book out of your hand to just have like an empty hand to do that one. There you go.
It is really remarkable, though, once you have a greater variety of blocks, how you can reduce the blockiness. Right?
Yes. No, it is fantastic. Okay, I'm going to do some live building here and fix this for you. Yeah, you really
the magenta
can.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually meant to be firewood.
Windowed full screen. Thank you, Turbo Gun. I'll try that real quick.
Yeah.
Full screen. That's gonna be. I've never played around with that on this, so there we go. So try Windows. Okay, it just has full screen on or off. So I'll do off and apply.
Click apply.
Yeah. But then of course,
you can make that. You can make that full. There you go. You can just press the square or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Just go up to that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Let's see if that works. All right. Hopefully that will keep the crashes from happening. Sorry, folks.
No worries at all. But yeah, so the contrast with the old interior and the new interiors are really big as well. The sheer variety of textures we can get on the walls and on the floors here, and all of the different individual, the candles and the mugs of ale and the bread and all this sort of thing. All that stuff has been introduced over the years, and there's a whole element here of.
Thank you, Gon. If that's the case, that's going to solve my other problem with Lego. So sorry, Jack. I don't mean to interrupt, but that's been a problem I've been running around with, and I just haven't been able to figure out what the issue is. But if it's full screen windowed versus full screen, then that could be a huge help. Thank you, Gon. Or I should say, Khan Buri Khan.
Live tech support is very much in the.
Isn't it great?
So
I love that.
So yeah, so when our texture team are adding all of these blocks and models and stuff and all this sort of thing, they are actually doing research themselves. So a good example, and I'm going to see if we can find one, but whenever you see a barrel on ArdaCraft, a lot, and this is an issue that I'll say this, and this will annoy you forever in all movies and TV shows and games. Whenever you see barrels in those sorts of media, they often have iron or steel hoops, right?
Yes.
That's like a 17th or 18th century invention. So whenever you see that in medieval fantasy, it's completely wrong,
right?
Because iron and steel was so rare. So we have wooden hoops around our barrels, right? And that's just one example of many examples of the
historical
kind of
accuracy.
Yeah, like looms, for example. There's a loom map which those guys have made. So the different kind of looms that you would see in different cultures across Middle Earth, and then how those would look in different areas. That's a whole thing. For making fabric inside homes, all that kind of thing. All that research is happening.
So are there ever any cases where you compromise on that because of expectations, or do you take a purist approach with all that sort of technology?
We love undermining people's expectations, or maybe undermining is the wrong word, but we love giving people like a new look at Middle Earth.
If I walk under the pigeon, am I just asking for trouble?
That would be a great Easter egg if you get,
Just gonna go right past in there.
You can see here, actually, this is a fun little detail.
Okay.
So the interesting thing about Bree is that it's obviously extremely ancient, right? So it's been here for millennia. And so you walk around, you can see how ancient the stone is.
So you can see some old.
On the stones. But this here is actually a dwarven. You can see some dwarven carvings on the walls. There's actually a little dwarven writing. You can see here the kid.
Oh yeah, some runes right there.
This is exactly. So this is because the dwarves themselves are, you know, an integral part of Bree itself, is their economy, because they pass through here to different mountains, going, you know, to and fro. This would be a key stop-off point for them. So we have a separate parlor set aside for them in the Prancing Pony, just as they had one set aside for hobbits. Naturally, they would probably have a dwarven area because they like, you know, these private people they like to keep to themselves. And this here is basically, as far as I remember, like a dwarven workshop. So,
and they're not required to check in using their real names.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true, actually. I never thought about that. Yes, so these little details of like this. Bree, obviously the Breelanders themselves, but it's been influenced massively by Arnor. Actually, if we walk up this way, I'll show you.
There's a rat. Do I kill him with my sword?
Oh, you could, but sadly, all guests are prevented from.
I thought maybe if I killed him, I'd get to level 2 and add a new skill point or something. All right. We did have a question in chat. Ed asks, are any of the barrows modeled on the roll-right stones?
Great question. Don't know off the top of my head, but that is certainly the kind of thing that we look at when we're looking at these cultures.
Sense.
I just wanted to take you in here because this is an old Arnorian building, in fact. So this, you can see the use of stone, the arches, all that stuff, which the Breelanders have kept because, you know, the Arnor fell 1,000 years ago, and they've turned it now into sort of somewhat of a market hall. They keep livestock in here. They sell and buy things here. But, you know, its original purpose, I'm not sure. It may have been a sort of small basilica or government building of some kind. But as these things happen in real life, right, something gets built for a certain purpose, but then it gets repurposed.
Changed, right, by later cultures, right. And it looks like there's a little add-on that they put on here, too. I'm way up top looking down on it. Yeah. Yeah.
So you get these layers of history in these builds, which...
that's a really, that really does add to the authenticity. I'm thinking in my mind now, the conversation that we had with James, that you and I had with the guy from Weta, whose name currently escapes me. I'll if I hear it, I'll know it. But he's the lead writer for Tales of the Shire, and he talked about some similar things about layers of history and how we'll find, like, you know, Arnorian stuff, you know, in the Shire, clues to the old history. I like seeing other games take that same approach, but this is really impressive, especially because, of course, this is not a funded project. This is all volunteer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's volunteer run. You know, we have donations, obviously, which help us keep going. But yeah, broadly speaking, this is all volunteer run, and we're very grateful to the people who do support us. But yeah, but that being said, we have been able to build up this. Interesting people, interesting levels of expertise over the years. This is just one example of one of those things. We have a mill guy who's really interested in historical mills and design. So he built this. If you actually go up around the back of it, so you see this big ladder that kind of comes down. I always love showing people this because it's really cool. This big wheel essentially is so that you can push this thing around, and then the wooden section at the top of the mill will move to face the wind. So this was an actual historical design that they used to use, if you see what I mean.
That would rotate the entire piece. Okay. I've also got our wonderful tech support, and by the way, have you noticed it hasn't had the problem since? So I think Gon might have been right. Asks, what's the question now? Make sure to ask Fornad about Bill the Pony. So I'm asking about Bill the Pony.
He is here. He is here. I just want to take you into the mill quickly, because if you come in here, you can actually see that the mechanism, you may have to like crouch, press shift, and get.
I had to shift.
There's a mechanism in here, all set up.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
And if you see that
it's functioning,
you see the smoke. You see the smoke in here.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting thing as well. There's actually a fire burning at the bottom of the mill in a little fireplace, and they route the smoke up through here because it kills termites and weevils and all these sorts of things to prevent the wood from being eaten.
Right.
So this is again real historical design of mill that we've just implemented.
I love it. That's amazing. Yeah, it would kill like the. Oh, that's great.
In the building process, are these buildings typically built somewhere else and then moved in place? Is that how the stuff gets constructed?
It's a mix of things. You know, typically, I mean, I can go into the whole planning and building process is something we can look at a little bit later, because I'd love to show you like an in progress area, and it'll give you.
I'm looking at the map, by the way, and I'm sorry, Jack. I'm looking at the map, so I'm seeing the Wall of Bree, right?
Yes.
And I'm seeing all these farmlands to my west. And I love that because, we're not told about any farmland, I don't think, outside Bree, but it would have to be there because you're talking about a town of people who need food. And it's going to be the same kind of thing. We are told about it a little bit when we approach Minas Tirith, we're talked to Fold and Buyer and all that good stuff. But I just wanted to kind of call that out and be like, look at that. I mean, that is really cool that we've got, if I can get the spacebar thing right.
There we go. We'll get you there, Alan, with your Minecraft skills.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. So back to what you were saying. But yes.
Yeah. So, well, no, I mean, farms is a great part of this as well, because obviously not only when we are looking at builds are we planning out, the layout and the architecture and thinking about all those layers of history, but we're also thinking about the farming techniques, and these vary depending on culture, right? So with Bree, you can see these ridge and furrow fields. You can fly down into them and actually see the landscape shaped, in these kind of undulating shapes, and that's being caused by the plow over many years. And if you go around Europe today, you can still see remnants of ridge and furrow fields all over the place. And this is a very kind of medieval technique of field. But in Gondor, if we go into Gondor, as we will go into Gondor later, the techniques there are very much based on ancient Mediterranean farming, so the sort of stuff that the Romans and Greeks were doing. So that's a different kind of farming. The enclosed fields in the Shire are much more kind of English 18th century kind of vibe. So different cultures, just as they have different architecture, will also have different styles of farming, of agriculture. And when we come to the elves, we need to do more work on this in the future. But something we've started to think about is I think it's called silvioculture. So it's growing crops within woodlands and working with the natural environment to allow,
which sounds like something the elves would definitely do.
Absolutely, yeah. So again, just different cultures having different approaches to all these different things, I think, is really fascinating and part of the work.
Good question about whether it's corn. When you say corn, do you mean maize or do you mean corn? Because when Tolkien uses the word corn, he doesn't necessarily mean what Americans will think of when you read the word corn. He's not talking necessarily about the long vegetable with the tiny little yellow kernels. Corn is whatever the main cereal crop is in a region. It might be wheat, might be barley, might be maize.
Correct.
So corn does not necessarily in Tolkien mean maize.
Yes, yeah. And in fact, we just don't have maize at all because we see it as being it's a new world crop.
Yeah, it's a new world crop, right?
So yeah. But yeah, so Bree, brilliant, and you can see I'm hopefully that's given you a sense of the way in which we have changed over time. I think we've obviously just spoken about farms, and what I'd like to show you now is some of the behind the scenes stuff and how farms are actually being put together. So if you type in Warp Gondor, this is all one word, Warp Gondor Rural Guide. So all in a single kind of there you go, should pop up for you. And you can tab complete.
Warping.
There you go.
Before you go any further. Okay. Whoa. I'm now inside a person's head.
Sorry, that was me.
Yeah, I know. It's all right. Guide should be explored alongside the rural guide document. Okay. Argent will be sad if you don't. Okay.
Yes. He's one of them. He's my co-admin, actually.
What in the world is that?
Oh, who knows? That's one of the, because this is now in our free build area, our builders have a little more latitude to do whatever they want. But let's fly into let's go into the rural guide, because I just want to show you this, and this is a work in progress area, to be clear. But I think it is interesting to see kind of a little bit behind the scenes as to how we guide our builders through things. So you can see we have a little welcome thing. We have different signs. I just want to take you, for example, into the animal area, and we can see, because there is a big educational element to what we're doing here as well. And what we want to show people and explain to people is how ancient people in the past actually survived and produced their food. So, for example, we're in the animal area now. These little exhibits here are intended to show how pasturing works and how sheep are brought up into the mountains in the summer and then down into the plains in the winter to graze on the old fields. And then if we go down this kind of long corridor here, we have a number of kind of big exhibits showing how different animals are kind of cared for and the products that come from them. So, you have sheep, cattle, chickens,
so sheep and goats, and it tells us all about how they would work on a Gondorian farm.
Yeah, yeah. And there's little cutouts of buildings.
Okay,
and
since you're adding detail that Tolkien didn't include, I'm just wondering, does Aragorn finally have a tax policy?
Yes. You know what? The tax policy of Gondor is not something we've looked at too much, but I do think when we get to Pelargia, we will have to maybe think about.
Yeah, we got to figure out how do the fiefs support the I've got a question here from Katie in the chat. Question for me for all three of you. What is your favorite thing to see realized and depicted in game, or what do you want most to see realized in game? Well, let's go in level of experience. Jack, what's your favorite thing that you've seen realized and depicted in game? The one thing that's like, man, this is it.
So for me, it's a close tie between Karas Galathon and Minas Tirith right now.
Okay.
My answer may change over time. In
we'll
the
have
future,
to see one of those today. Yeah.
In the future, Dol Amroth is the location for me. I really want to do it, and there's so much pressure on us to do it really well because really care about it.
Yeah, you don't want Imrahil coming after you. All right,
no, exactly.
James, I don't know. You may have played around with it a little more.
Yeah, I mean the place I remember. It's been a while, but the place I remember enjoying the most was Karas Galathon. Yeah, it is exactly the amount of magicalness that you imagine it would be to be there.
I love how this is, like you said, educational. This is like going to, a historical museum and learning about how this ancient society survived. How they got.
I love that it's in game as well. I love how much of the documentation is in game.
Yeah, it's not like a PDF that you have to read. I do love this. Needs update example.
Yes. So there are approved. We have not approved blocks and approved blocks.
That's great.
And
I love it.
And all stuff. But yes, so this, there's an in-game component to kind of show, okay, how do we execute it? And then there is also a document that's more like the theory behind it, right? So it's with real life images. So you can kind of mentally think, okay, this is how this thing looked in real life. This is how it's being represented in game. Now I understand and have drawn a link. And yeah, teaching people about this stuff is a big part of the satisfaction of this project for me, because a lot of people just almost have no idea how food is produced at all, and obviously these are old techniques, but many of them kind of remain extant and true to what happens now. So this is all, we're going now into the wool production area. So
the products that come from the sheep.
Absolutely. So like all the steps that you have to take to actually produce wool, and then
I just spend the rest of my time in here.
In the cheese section,
yeah. I just need a fireplace though to smoke it. We gotta have smoked cheese.
That's a good point. Do Gondorians have smoked cheese?
Probably. We got another question in the chat. Can you get to the Tower Hills? Sorry if you already mentioned it. I missed it. We did look at them. We saw them from the Shire, but I don't think we've been there yet. I'm assuming though, if we can see it, we can go there, right?
If you can see it, you can go there. That's the whole idea of ArdaCraft. Is any direction you go in, there will be detail and there will be things to look at.
That's amazing.
So what I'm going to quickly.
Can you, if you climb up to the top of the tower though? Can you see Tolaresia or Tolaresia?
Now that would be a stretch, I have to say, from our limitations. I would love for that to be true.
The map would be huge.
Oh god, yeah.
So the floating stuff here. This was. Oh, this is because this is that sort of exhibit place. This is the back. This is like the behind the scenes part.
This is the kind of back room.
Back lot. That's pretty cool, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, there's to get this. I mean, just seeing that just gives you a sense of how much behind the scenes work there is before we get to.
If you had to ballpark, and I know you're going to be. I mean, I know this is going to be a guess. If you had to ballpark, how many approximately man hours or human hours of work has it taken your team to get this far?
I honestly couldn't.
100,000, 2 million, 5 million man hours.
It would have to be in the millions, right? Because I mean, we've had a team consistently of 30 to 40 people for the last sort of 10. Obviously, that number has varied over time, but 10 years working every day on it throughout that entire time.
When you started, did you have the sort of goal of the historical accuracy then, or is that something you decided later on to do?
And just to explain what we're doing here, so this is just examples of how different fields in Gondor should look. So this is just taking people through the different looks and depending on how long ago they were plowed and what kind of field it was.
Gosh, the detail is insane.
Yeah.
Fresh.
That's
Fresh.
just
Whether
insane.
it's been rained on. Yeah, honestly, I could go on about this area.
This is like an OCD person's like dream come true. I could pay attention to every single bit of detail forever and ever and never be done. That's great.
Yeah.
I say that as somebody who color coordinates his Skittles, so you know, I'm just calling myself out there, folks. All right, go ahead. Sorry, Jack.
I remember seeing a joke a while ago about how like ArdaCraft, like if the kind of people on ArdaCraft now are the kind of guys in like the 1800s who were like categorizing beetles, you know, in their basements, you know, it's the same urge. But you know, so we did always have that kind of sense of we want to do things historically correctly and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I would just, but our ability to do that and our research capacity and the number of people working on it and the mods themselves and the variety of textures and models and all that stuff that goes into it has enormously improved in the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years. And so we are able to kind of bring it to this whole new level of fidelity that we weren't able to do in the past.
That's amazing.
And that makes it much more. Well, it just makes it much more interesting, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is just a bit of the rule guide. There are many other aspects of it. So there's an entire section that takes you through how you go from wheat in the field to bread and all of the different processes that have to happen there.
Wow.
We could go on.
We could. Let's do a little bit of sightseeing.
Yes, let's do
you guys both mentioned Carrascaladon, so let's see that.
Yes.
I've not seen a lot. I would like to see the Grey Havens. So do we want to do Carrascaladon first or the Grey Havens first?
Let's do, this is a little bit like the old Bree and the new Bree. Let's do the Grey Havens first, because if you do Warp Mythland, or Mythland will take you there, actually.
So Warp Mythland?
Yep, Mythland, yep, absolutely. Because this is a little bit like old Bree and new Bree. Because this is, so again, this is kind of one of those interesting things of like old podcasts, like I was saying. To us, this is incredibly outdated. We will scrap all of this in a few years' time.
No.
And the Grey Havens will be completely redone.
OG Mythland. OG Mythland.
This is OG Mythland indeed. So
that's beautiful.
This is something that we did. So you can fly up above it. This is something that we did back in, I think it was 2016, 2017. So
I can see what you mean by the dated. I mean, like, this does not live up to the level of detail that I've seen in like the new Bree or the new Shire. I mean, just from here, it's not.
I'm glad you can see that. I'm really glad you can see that.
It's still impressive as heck, but.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is so you almost go from like this is for me or for us in general. This is an impressive build in Minecraft to what we are doing now, which in our view is like this is something that has genuine like scholarly value.
Yeah.
And historic, like, you know, we've taken another step. So Mythland is huge, right? It's
a huge,
enormous city. And I think what happened was that we were very excited. We had just finished the Shire. We wanted to do an absolutely amazing, enormous build that would get us lots of attention online. So we did this. And to be fair, it is impressive for the time. It's huge. But the reason that we want to do it is kind of two things. Because obviously, one side is we've massively improved our ability to do things, to pull things off. The other thing is that we went way too big. Like, Fund as a city. I mean, this city at our scale is like this would be like the second or third biggest city in Gondor, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy for the elves to have this much architecture and infrastructure at the end of the Third Age when there should be like 5 guys in Círdan hanging out.
That's a fair point. You're not going to be able to keep the infrastructure rolling with a half a dozen people, no matter how hard they work.
So our new version of it, when that time comes, which will be some years away still, will be something that's a lot more. I mean, it's crazy how much work we put in. It'll be a lot more low key. There will be a lot more forest. Obviously, there'll be the old walls, but it'll be a sense of this place was once greater thousands of years ago, but now it's massive.
So you'll have the layers again, and you'll have like ruins
exactly, precisely, yeah. So that's the kind of way that we'll go. It will still be beautiful, obviously, and interestingly, those mountains you're seeing off in the distance, those are the blue mountains.
Yeah,
those in the new map, because I can talk about the new map, the new terrain that we're working on, are like twice the size, and they look so much better. They look like the Scottish Highlands. I mean, I'm very proud of what we've done.
I can't wait.
So you know, I would love to. It would be brilliant in a few years' time to be able to teleport from this to the new one to show you just what we have been able to achieve there.
That is fantastic. I'd say thank you for bringing us here, though, even if it is, you know, not up to the par of modern Brie and modern Caras Galadhon, which I'm assuming we're going to next.
Yeah, we're going to next. And Caras Galadhon is much closer.
Okay.
It's all one word, by the way. Caras Galadhon.
Yeah, that's what I thought. There's no spaces yet.
Yeah. So here we are. So Caras Galadhon done much more recently. Done with, for example, a tell you can always have on how recent something is the new trees and the new branches. Yeah.
Trees make the show, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the music is different. I know that I know that we're still working on trying to figure out how to get music properly when I'm streaming from the PC. And that's been a challenge for me, but the music's great. And you guys have how did the soundtrack come about? Do you have like a couple of composers on your team?
Yeah, it's kind of something that came about almost without planning, which is always the best kind of thing. We had a composer basically just show up one day and said, "Hey guys, I love the project. I'd love to help you out." And he just wrote this fantastic soundtrack for us. And so we have our theme tune, which you hear in the main menu, but then every single major location, I will say, in the has its own
like this. Themes. I'm gonna just fly around and you just talk while I like slowly fly us around like a drone, like drone footage.
Yeah. So Caras Galadhon was a labor of love, and to put it mildly, this place started out, if you can imagine it, as literally a green hill of grass with nothing on it. And basically everything you see here was basically done by hand. So all of the trees, all of the roots curving into the ground, all of the lamps hanging from the trees, all of the flets in the trees themselves, you know, the dwellings of the elves.
Look at that.
Everything was done by hand. It took
my gosh
years. I think it took us 3 or maybe 4 years to do this. Really a real labor of love. And
clearly
it was and it's still one of our most impressive locations. I mean, it's very hard to top Caras Galadhon.
There's so much mood here, so much ambience. It's really stunning.
And something you can do actually, if you press G to bring up your time, you see the little noon, midnight, sunrise, sunset buttons there. You can mess around with the time as well. So you can play around with different time settings and see this in different lights, which is always nice.
So when you're seeing it like at 5 in the morning just before the sun comes up.
Just before the sun comes up, yeah. And then because you can go in and change that sunrise. You can change that. You see that number? If you change that 4,000, so it's 5 down over 4. If you change that 4,000 to a 5,000, that will bring the sun up. There you go. And
early
now
morning.
It's sort of early morning, and the sun's sort of filtering in.
Feel like it's time to get up and have some breakfast.
Yeah, and Caras is huge, right? So like you can go up to the top of the hill and get to the flat of Galadriel and Celeborn, and that's all there too.
The music is great. It really. Your composer did a fantastic job. I'm going to go out of. There we go. Oh, so there it is, isn't it?
There it is. Yeah. So that's Galadriel and Celeborn's Malon.
Caras Galadhon, the very heart of elvendom on earth.
It's I'm still really proud of this build. I think one of the things that will change with this in the future, and this is we were talking a little bit earlier about undermining or whatever the word is, expectations. So we're set. So the Fellowship visits Caras Galadhon, I think, in February.
Yeah.
And
so they left Rivendell on December 25th. So it was like late January, early February, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So at that time, the leaves turn gold in autumn. They remain on the trees throughout winter, and then they fall in the spring, and you have this carpet of golden leaves. Because we're set in September, so kind of late summer, early autumn, the trees all here would actually be green. And we've begun to realize this over the past few years, that maybe, and it's going to be a fascinating one, because literally every depiction of Lorien you ever see is with golden leaves.
Yeah.
But we will actually have green leaves, golden flowers, as we know the Malorns were for half the year, but that never gets shown. So it's just one of these wonderful things that we can do with this project, where we can actually show people a side or an element or a facet of Middle-earth that they never quite realize would be the case. And I find that stuff really interesting and fun.
I was wondering if there's a, let's see if there's a mirror. No, okay. I was wondering how to get to the mirror.
Galadriel will take you to the mirror itself.
Oh, just warp Galadriel.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I thought maybe it would work because I have to click on that, don't I? There we go. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So if you walk down into that dell in front of you, there you go. There's like a little path down into the.
You stop and play a game of chess with Galadriel first.
Yeah. Well, those are the sort of little fun details. You know, think, what are the elves doing all day? Yeah.
Very good at chess after a few thousand years of practice.
Like all grandmasters. Yeah. But there's the mirror. Yeah. So then the little ewer and the stream and all that stuff. It's all here.
I see you.
That's something we actually want to put in. Is like a little Easter egg of like
jump
you
scare
close to the mirror and the Eye of Sauron appears. Yeah, we've joked.
That'd
about
be pretty awesome.
Oh,
look at that little footpath with the bridge, and this is just fantastic, man. I gotta say.
And then you can see the Anduin actually just off there in the distance.
Oh yeah.
You see that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we would head down the river. Yeah. How long, if we were to just fly, which is faster than walking, how long would it take us to go down the river to, say, the Argonath?
About maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Oh my goodness, that's huge! I love it. So there's the little Nath, right? Where the there it is.
The Nath, and the little boat landing area where they come. So it's all.
Sure, there's coils of Hithline in there.
Yep.
Yeah. Little boats they take. But yeah, Karis is brilliant, and just. Like, again, you can spend hours in each of these locations.
I was going to say, you could just explore for ages in this place.
Yeah.
I love that. The way the light, since you said this is just an hour after sunrise, the way that morning light is hitting the tops of the trees facing east.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just immediately tell without even knowing exactly where you are on the map that you're looking north because the sun, it's sunrise. So you know that's the morning sun. So those are going to be the Misty Mountains in the background.
And as we appreciate these trees, I'd like to take you to another one of our back rooms locations.
Okay.
So literally, all you have to do is do warp trees. It's as simple as that. And that takes you to the warp tree. Yeah, will take you to the right place. So again, I'll TP to you. So you may want to press G and bring your time back to noon because there will be a lot of mist at this time. So the full sun.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect. So
they paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is very much not in Middle Earth, as you can tell. So this isn't one of our kind of.
This looks like it's, I don't know. I mean, just massive low-income housing here. Anybody can buy a block of, wow, it's huge. Yeah, I feel like I'm moving super slowly.
But it's just that large.
It's just that big.
Yeah. So this is the tree grid, we call it. And this is where all of the trees for the project are being built. We have done a full biome map of Middle Earth, which I know James has seen.
Yeah, I think you showed that. I think, we talked about that. Or you showed it to me, or I found it or something, yeah.
Yeah. So we have a full biome map, and this is basically based on real European plant communities. And so we have taken that and basically scoured it for all of the tree species that are there. We've done a bit of culling where some tree species look very similar to each other, so we don't need to build both. But what we eventually end up with is a full list of tree species. I think it's somewhere like 120, 150, something like that, different species.
But the question the question is, are you able to identify different types of trees from a very long way away?
I should have brought you to the larch area.
I was going to say, man.
That is literally in progress right now. So I've brought you to that's the silver fir area. So basically, a lot of conifers are being built right now.
Silver fir.
We have some very talented people who are in charge of this. So when it comes to building trees, you can see that we're building them at different heights, right?
Yeah,
so
so that the forest can look natural in terms of stages of growth.
Correct. Yeah. So different growing conditions, different areas.
Right.
Have different.
Some with where the green doesn't start until farther up, like it's maybe been burned, or
yeah, or just it's in a forest, and you have to, you know, the canopy starts further up because lower down there isn't enough light.
Wow.
Yeah. and it goes on and on and on. I'll just bring you over here. These
I was going to say.
Yeah, so these are half imprint. So you see these have yet to have leaves to be added, but you can see the branch structures quite nicely on them.
I'm going to try typing warp larch.
Oh yeah, that might actually.
I don't think it gets me to the larch.
There is a Scots pine. I'll see if I can find the larches actually just from that. It's just your own personal enjoyment.
For those who don't know, that's a running joke on the Prancing Pony podcast because of course it's a Monty Python joke.
And therefore it's a Prancing Pony podcast.
And therefore it's we have acquired it for its own. We are the Morgoth to Monty Python. We name it unto ourselves.
Yes. I like that. Yeah.
Oh, I see. The top down view really helps you sort of organize, like see the organizational structure. So if you're looking at the map in the upper right hand corner, you really do get a feel for tree types, sizes, seasons, stages of growth, that kind of thing.
Precisely, yeah. And so this is the kind of construction bit. And then when they're done, they kind of get slotted into the big apartment blocks you can see in the back.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So they get done, approved, put in there, saved, and then they are kind of preserved and used throughout the map. So another interesting aspect of this actually is, I'll just bring you over to the Scots Pine area so you can have a look at that. So because we have people who support the server with money, what we're able to do is actually commission specific things, and one of the things that we get to commission is new tree models and textures and that kind of thing. So Scots pines is one of the pines themselves, and one of the more recent ones that we've added, along with cypresses. And
cypresses are nice.
They're beautiful trees, and these are very much needed, especially so stone pine and cypress are particularly needed for Gondor because we need that kind of Mediterranean vibe.
Right.
There weren't appropriate blocks for us to do it justice. So therefore, we paid, the developers, an amount of money, a few $100s per commission, to create these models and these textures, so that our builders can then go on to create these trees. Because these, for example, are the stone pines, or I think they're also called umbrella pines. You see them a lot around Rome and Florence and all these kinds of areas, and it instantly gives you that kind of
vibe, that Mediterranean. Got a couple questions in chat for you real quick. One is, what's the next project in ArdaCraft that you and your team are most looking forward to? Is it Dol Amroth?
Dol Amroth again. No, I'll be more interesting than that. So at the moment we're working on Anorian, which actually I will take you to immediately after this. So the kind of northeastern fiefdom of Gondor. Once that's done, Minas Tirith will continue to be ongoing, because that is, as you can imagine, a stupid amount of work. We'll move into Lossarnac, Lebanon, kind of southern Gondor. So that's what's happening next in Gondor. Then also at the same time, we're doing the West March of Rohan. Once that's done, we will have a relook at the Westfold, because that's very old. All that stuff. So yes, we're looking forward to those new areas, because it's always fun to kind of move into new and unexplored territories. But what I'd like to take you to now is Anorian. So I'd like you to take you to one of our more work in progress areas in Anorian. I think this is always interesting for people to see. And this is a town that we have created ourselves. So if you type in warp Pelandros, so Pelandros, that should get you there.
Okay. In the meantime, there's another question. Have you done the trees with the red flowers in Cormallen?
We haven't done Cormallen, so no. But we will. We will. We'll have to actually figure out what
the Culamalda trees. Well, you know that we did a whole bit. If you listen to the Steward and the King, no, not Steward and the King. The which chapter is the Field of Cormallen? It's just the Field of Cormallen, right? Yes, Field of Cormallen chapter. We did a big long sidebar in that because there's basically an answer as to what those trees actually are. So let me know, and I'll send you that data.
Yeah.
I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to figure it out. So actually, to your right, you can actually see the cypresses that we added in.
So,
so
that feels very California, very Italy, very
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
So it's I was just gonna say it's all about creating that sense of, okay, you know, going from the Shire to here, you should feel like you're in a hotter climate. It's a different place, you know, and that's a really key part of what we're trying to achieve, is because you know, the base game does not allow you to create those kind of subtle differences in shade and texture and all that kind of thing. So we're here in Palandros. Palandros, to place it in Middle Earth for people, it's next to Caer Andros, so the hill in the River Anduin on which Gondor has a fort protecting Anorion, and Palandros is a town that is sort of adjacent to it, and it's a town that has seen better days, it's fair to say. So as you wander around, you'll get
it's got a bunch of stuff hanging above it, you know.
It does have a bunch of stuff. Yeah, so this is
I'm assuming
what
it's
I
like
wanted to show you
scaffolding or guides.
Correct. So actually, if you fly up, you can have a look at those. So these are what we call plots. And what these enable us to do is kind of enable quality control and assigning different areas to different people. So you can see that these plots follow the road. And what we're saying is an individual builder can go in and claim one of these plots and can detail the road in the correct way. And then it's put up for approval. And the person leading this area will come in and say,
yes or no.
Either it's approved, or they'll say, you need to improve X, Y, Z. Yeah, exactly. And that's literally how all of our projects run, so that we're able to kind of maintain that QC and control throughout. And yeah, it's quite an efficient system, and you'll see that throughout all of our work in progress builds, whether it's a field, whether it's a road, a house, whatever. But yeah, so Palandros, you can see as you fly above it, obviously you have these quite extensive walls around this town, but you can see that a lot of the areas within the town are not buildings, and they have been turned over time into agricultural areas. And that's because Gondor has undergone, as you well know, years and years and years of decline. You know, when Pippin goes to Minas Tirith, he sees, you know, many of these houses are all boarded up and shuttered and half ruined. And we want to get that vibe throughout Gondor, but particularly in Anorion, which of course is now on the kind of borderland between. Yeah,
it's even older.
And
been abandoned longer.
Yeah, exactly, and it's just under threat of more raids from Mordor fairly constantly. So,
and from the Easterlings before that, you know, over the Undeeps. Yeah,
there's Caer Andros there, by the way, just in front of you.
Oh, okay.
Behind it. That's
the
very
ship
much
of tall foam.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's still in progress, or very just early shaping at the moment, really. But yeah, what we wanted to get a sense of in Palandros and just Anorion more generally is that sense of decline. You know, we're not too far away from Osgiliath here, and so you know, when we come to build Osgiliath, we will have to sit down and think about. We've started to sit down and think about how.
In fact, am I seeing Osgiliath in the distance there to the south?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, precisely. So those are the beginnings of what will be one day.
Oh, I see Minas Tirith.
And there's Minas Tirith and the White Mountains, and yeah, it's all here.
Mindalluin right there. Yeah.
Mindalluin, yeah, precisely, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's because obviously we have all of these big lore locations, right? And we have these kind of huge places that everyone wants to get to. But for me, and I think for the ArdaCraft build team in general, the real satisfaction of this project is filling in those kind of blank areas that Tolkien left us in a way that feels true to what he sort of, you know, his focus on history, his interest in all these sorts of things. It feels true to what we would have wanted.
Is that the Ramas Ekor that I'm looking at down there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all there. So that hopefully places you quite well as to where we are.
Yeah, it really does. Now. Fantastic. I mean, other than the kind of slightly distracting things that are floating in the sky, which I know is just all temporary and all of that, that is fantastic. I mean, you can. I'm seeing the path by which the riders of Rohan came through the Druidon Forest over here to the right of the screen, and you know, I'm seeing where they would have come across and into past that dike that they were, you know, the Gondorians were still trying to rebuild. It was like, you better just you better go back.
Yeah, so things are not looking so good. Yeah,
don't bother now. Yeah, it's a little late to do.
It's one of the fun things about being set when we are, because obviously we're set 12 years before that, so presumably Ramas Ekor is in a much worse state than when we encounter it in the Return of the King.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me just bring you back down into the town and just quickly show you like an inn. No, that's fine.
Yeah, worry. Please bring me on down. Teleport me with my permission this time. I give you my consent.
There you go. So this inn is fun. So that we're in Pandros, we're back in this town.
Right.
I think you may start to see. So just before you go in, actually, you see the lamp hanging above the above the archway there. So again, this is a great example of how we take Tolkien and kind of expand from onwards from there, right? So the Prancing Pony has a lamp over the door, right? And we say, okay, well, where we think about it, we think, where did that come from? Is that just a unique Bree thing? Well, what if it was an Arnorian thing that a house that was for guests and travelers has this kind of welcoming lamp hanging over to signify that you can come in? And what if that is a tradition that maybe even goes back to Numenor, so that we can see that the cousin of the Prancing Pony is you know, there's a kind of common point if you go back in history 3,000-4,000 years of that kind of welcoming house for travelers.
Right.
And do you see what I mean? And now
in
Gondor,
but well, like we do linguistically, you're doing architecturally. Yes. So the idea is to show the sort of the asterisk.
Absolutely. And then you walk into this courtyard here, and again, you know, obviously it's a very different place, different. Oh, that's fine. Different architecture, different all these sorts of things. But that common element of two wings, a courtyard.
Courtyard where the horses would go, and
absolutely, yeah. So you feel that sense of like, oh, there's a bit of connection there. Yes, it's distant. Yes, these are different people, different times, different place. But can you walk through here? There you go. I know. I mean, you might still be flying actually. You might.
Yeah.
So this hasn't been fully textured yet. You can see how we plan out an interior where we just have it blank and then it gets brought in. But you can see again how this all works out. And actually, if you come in here, so this is an interesting thing, and you see this is a common architectural thing that we'll see throughout Gondor. We found a note in the Nature of Middle Earth where Tolkien talks about a thing called a solma. Have you ever heard of one of these before?
A what?
A solma, S-O-L-M-A.
Nope.
It's a Numenorian thing. So it was the Hall of Fire in Numenorian homes. And he talks about it in reference to dogs, the fact that the Numenorians own dogs. The old dogs would sleep around the fire in the solma. So that notion of a solma is something that we have taken forward into Gondor and gone, okay, these houses are built around the solma, the Hall of Fire. This is the central gathering place. Now you would have these in inns, but you would also have small versions of them in villages where the peasants would come to gather. But then great manors and you know the lords of the area would have grand solmas where people would come to gather and tell songs and all these sorts of things. So again, we can take these little tiny details of obscure lore and kind of expand them out into, okay, what does the architectural tradition of Gondor look like, and how can we trace that back to Numenor, and how can we relate that to things like So I don't know. These are all just fun elements. Yeah,
it is. We had a question in chat that's a good one. When working on this sort of architecture, the architecture that's, you know, eventually got its roots in Numenor, do you take more inspiration from Egyptian, Roman, or Babylonian architecture?
All of the above. All of the above. So yeah, I mean, so we have had to create artificially, to some degree, a kind of architectural. If you follow me down the road, actually, this is another like.
I was just looking at the horse and the goat. Okay, following you down the road.
And we've had to create a kind of architectural tradition in Gondor, and so we've had to go back and go, okay, well, how would the architecture have changed over time? What does old Numenorian stuff look like? How, when we progress through the glory of Gondor and the Ship Kings, and what does that architecture look like? And then these days, under the stewards, you know, things have declined. The material wealth has certainly declined. Maybe the building abilities have declined, right? Because they can't, you know, we have things like
can't do that anymore
around Minas Tirith. They can't do that stuff anymore. There's no way for them to do it. So tracing that layers of history is
ailed into your work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Gondor is maybe the place where that's more true than anywhere else. I mean, Gondor and Moria are probably the two top things where that ancient sense of architecture has to be everywhere you go. The sense that people have lived here for a very, very long time.
I want to get a little bit more. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to cut you off at all. I wanted to get a little bit more of what your involvement is, James. I know that you've been. I want to kind of hear from you a little bit about what you're doing and what you're looking forward to working on in connection to this.
I mean, it really comes back to what I said before, the tying the locations to the text.
Okay.
Because again, that's something that has not. I think Digital Talking Project and the ArdaCraft project are the two projects that most care about the specific locations tied to specific text.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, oh, this is a particular location, but where exactly in the text are the characters located at this location? Where is that location described? All that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I mean, it's still very early days in terms of the collaboration, but one of my goals is to really have that, by having consistent identifiers for locations and so on, be able to tie in the text and ArdaCraft in really nice ways. So being able to go to a particular location based on the text, where where is this paragraph set, right? One of the things we're doing in the Digital Talking Project is going through paragraph by paragraph and saying, where are the characters located? But we're doing that in reference to a database of locations. But what ArdaCraft has done an amazing job of is then putting those in an actual spatial sense. What's the exact relationship between these things beyond what you could simply do on an existing map? And so I mean, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Jack, but that's sort of my vision.
My thinking behind that, and we're just wandering through the fields of Gondor.
Yeah, no, I love it. Please do. It's perfect while he's talking. Yeah.
One of the things that comes to my mind on that is that on a purely kind of 2D flat kind of vector-based, polygonal-based map, what you could never show or demonstrate is the kind of 3D nature of things, because there's multiple times in the text where the characters are stood in a place looking at another place, and their view of it is very much dependent on their physical heights on the terrain in relation to other locations, etc., etc.
That's true.
That's something that our data can give to Digital Talking Project that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Exactly.
And so I think that kind of thing is where
that's exactly right. So it's exactly. It's not just where are they on the map, but what can they actually see? What's on the horizon? What can they see down in the valley below them? What can they see up? Exactly. Yeah.
We're just coming up here to an interesting place. So this, I mean, I'm sure you can tell, an old aqueduct. This would have supplied Osgiliath in the past. Obviously, no longer. There's not much need for water in Osgiliath these days.
For an abandoned town, yeah,
absolutely. But you can see, and there are many places like this around Rome and Italy and lots of places where the peasants just continue to farm around it, because of course they would, So this stands as a kind of monument to what Gondor was in the past, the greatness of it, the glory of it. But the people obviously have to continue to eat. So you have this wonderful, I think, quite I don't know, evocative sense of, and I think this is the really important thing for me in Gondor, is this evocative sense of the greatness of the past, the loss, the way in which the decline has happened. It's true throughout Middle Earth, of course, but I think this sort of location is, for me, one of the great kind of examples of that. What I want to show you over here actually is interesting. So you see these cliffs that are being worked on, quite dark stone. So this in our mind, this is a basalt, volcanic rock that was used and quarried thousands of years ago for the walls of Minas Tirith. So the Black Wall, we think, because we have geologists on the team, we can create a kind of geological history of Middle Earth that can make that all make sense. And so again, this is just another little detail that you probably wouldn't even notice if you walk past it. You just go, oh, it's a cliff, and then you just wander past. But these are the kinds of details that we want to include, because we want to be, we want to have detail everywhere and things to make sense, and just filling out the world in that way, I think, is really interesting.
Oh, and here's the wall.
There's Ramos. Yeah. And actually another great detail in the wall of the Ramos Echo is, again, you can see these arches in here.
Yeah.
So this is was another aqueduct. So this is an infilled aqueduct that was once leading towards Osgiliath. But then they have I was talking earlier about repurposing. They've repurposed that aqueduct into the line of the Ramazekor, because it was a more, there's already stone here. Why not just reuse the line? It makes sense. So if you go down that line, you'll find there's a point where the aqueduct splits off and the Ramas goes in a different direction because of the
that makes sense.
Obviously continued onto Osgiliath, but
right. Why not take advantage of existing building if you're going to use it as an outwall, right?
Which is how people worked throughout history, right? And we can imagine that Osgiliath itself was a great source of stone. They didn't
right.
These days we really care about preserving the past and putting blue plaques on buildings and making sure that nothing is ever destroyed. Historical people didn't care. they would happily rip down old buildings and use the stone for whatever they wanted. And I think we would see that in Gondor. But let's wander towards.
Got a couple questions in chat for you, Jack. Once Middle Earth is finished, I have a feeling it's never going to be done. But
I heard a great line before you say. I read a great line a couple of days ago, which is, "Art is never finished; it's only abandoned."
Ooh,
that is yes, and I think that's very true for us.
I was thinking almost of Leaf by Niggle. It's not finished, but it's finished with. Leaf
by Niggle is my favorite non-legendarium story.
Yeah,
for that
same.
Exactly, because I relate to it so much.
Such a good piece.
Yeah.
So if Middle Earth is finished one day, I took the liberty of changing that question. What's the next dream to build? They actually ask, any thoughts on building Valinor? I would imagine maybe some other things come to mind first, but that would be pretty amazing to build the shores of Aman.
Yeah, for me it would. Well, my personal preference would be to do a first age map, and would be to do Beleriand.
To do what? You're cut out.
Beleriand. Sorry, okay.
Beleriand. Yeah.
Because I think the problem with Valinor is kind of twofold in my mind. Number one, there's barely any detail. I mean, really,
that's the thing.
Very, very little on
Beleriand is the next most detailed area. We get that whole Beleriand and its realms gives us a lot of detail.
Yeah, just that chapter alone, let alone the rest of it.
Right.
Let's just wander through the gates of Minas Tirith here. But yeah, so Beleriand is much more detailed, much more interesting to me personally, because again, with Valinor, it's like, I don't know, it feels very static. It is what it is. It is the eternal realm of the gods. It is, as it always will be, and always. Whereas Beleriand again has these interesting, it has the dwarves, it has the elves, it has the men, it has Morgoth, it has all the different cultural and landscape influences that we get in Third Age Middle Earth as well. So to me, I would want to do that.
Yeah.
But as we said earlier, we could almost eternally iterate and improve upon.
That's the thing. I mean, it's like you'll never really be finished. Or you could go backwards in time. You're in Third Age now. You can go backwards to Second Age and do Numenor, because that's relatively well defined.
Or I mean, you've also always got the option of different Middle Earth at different times. You could do Second Age Middle Earth.
Second Age Middle Earth, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. We often
Excuse me. Sorry,
are
folks.
quite grateful to Tolkien because of his how post-apocalyptic the end of the Third Age is.
Yes,
how little it's in. Well, I say how little in very big quotation marks we have to build relative to, let's say that all of Arnor was still populated. That would be a nightmare. Whereas now it's just ruins, so we have to worry about Gondor but not doing all of Arnor. So the Third Age in some respects is easier to do than other areas. But,
it's fair.
This is Minas Tirith is obviously just, the scale of it is unbelievable.
It's huge.
The work that goes in is unbelievable.
I'm headed over towards the Rath Dinan.
Yes, that is very much not started, sadly. But you can get a feeling for the space anyway, and what's being thought.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
And actually, the Citadel is fairly well sketched out, so you can go up in there.
This is just glorious. I mean, do we have the place on the mountain where Aragorn finds the tree?
It's planned.
Good.
I will say it's planned.
As long as it's planned,
don't worry.
Oh, goodness, look at that.
So again, we get the Citadel.
Of course, because it's the Steward's flag, because it's before the Return of the King. So it's the white banner.
Still pretty much here. The Citadel, as I said, it's still fairly well. It's now fairly well sketched out. And an interesting difference between book and movie that comes to mind. That is one of those tiny blink and you miss it details in the text. So you know how in the film the whole 7th level in Citadel is just open, right? Like there's an open run from the White Tree out to the prow. Blink and you miss it moment. Tolkien talks about them coming up onto the prow and then going through the Seventh Gate. So we know for a fact that it was in fact set up like this. There was a full circle of wall, and then the prow is a kind of separate area. And that's something that you basically never see, or I can't think of any. Well, there are maybe some depictions, but it's interesting how much the movies influence later art, I will say, and how much we consciously have to go, is that actually Tolkien, or is that just we think of it in that way because that's how we've seen it? Yeah. And again, this Distant Horizons thing, our ability to look out from the prow and see the mountains of Mordor, to me is just, I'll never get over this.
Or look down and see the word dairy.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, the planning. Yeah, exactly. Yes, where the Pelennor are filled out and the filling is done, and that view will be. I mean, this will be one of the most glorious.
Yeah,
it already is a pretty.
This will be a screenshotted thing like crazy when it's done.
Yeah.
The bend of the Anduin and James, remind me, what are these? Eamon Arnon, right? These hills here to the other side of the Anduin.
Yep.
That's where Faramir ends up building his home somewhere over there. So then Ithilien up there between Anduin and the Mountains of Shadow.
Yes.
And if we go down far enough, we get to the mouths of Anduin and to the sea.
So that what you're looking now is where we're going next in Gondor. So once Anorion is filled out, and we have seen only one town in Anorion. There are several. There's villages and manors and old ruins and all sorts that we're doing in Anorion at the moment. But once that's all done, we will swing south and head down into Lasarnak and Lebanon.
I want to see ships with black sails on the horizon coming up the Anduin.
Exactly, yeah.
And have the banner unfurled, the stars, and the Elendil, the banner of kings. We have another question. Does the team have an area like the trees for flowers? Just thinking of like the charnel flowers in Minas Ithil or the Eleanor, things like that. Nifredil.
It's a great question. Yeah, I mean, we sort of do, and we have, because I spoke earlier about the biome map, which brings together all of these sort of trees, but also the plants and the flowers that would be found in these different locations. And we do have an area where in-game we are setting out how each of these areas should look in little sort of small hexagons, basically, not very big. And so it means that because I'm the main guy working on the terrain and the map itself, it means I can go in and look at that and go, okay, this is how it should look. I will take all of those flowers and plants and trees and bushes and use them on the map itself. And so there's a kind of, research to how it should look be in game to, me making the terrain itself and placing that all down. And I'm currently deep in the Dead Marshes, actually, working on those and working out how that should all look and referencing back to the text and thinking about how to make it feel appropriately dead. And there's been discussions about the area outside of the Black Gate. I appreciate I'm going on a bit, but all of that stuff is being thought about and worked on. So you see all of the stuff in game that's being worked on, but there's so much behind the scenes. Right now we're talking a lot about Moria. There was a discussion just earlier today about what was the population of Moria like over time? How is it affected by the different events and stuff? And thinking about. I've been doing a lot of research into the mining techniques that would have been used in Moria, and we have all that stuff. And actually, what I'm going to do now is show you something related to that, which I think may blow your mind a little bit.
And then we're going to start wrapping it up so we don't run late. We've got 15 minutes left, which means we really have about 7 or 8 minutes left.
Yeah, we will do many more streams, hopefully, in the future, where we can go more in depth on all sorts of stuff. But if you just type in warp Moria geology, all one word, this is a really fun thing.
Okay.
So,
oh wow!
This is in our free build world. This is a kind of separate. So this is in the kind of backrooms world where all of the stuff gets planned out. We have geologists on the team.
Yeah.
One of our geologists has done a full kind of geological survey of Moria. So you can see marked on there. You've got the West Gate. You've got the East Gate. You've got the kind of Vale of Anduin.
The cross section here.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can walk up to it and look at it in more detail, but. Yeah, what we want to work out and understand is what are the different rock layers within Moria, and then how does that influence things like the geothermal gradients, how warm is it underground, and where would the dwarves live in relation to that? what does the architecture look like, because different, boring through granite is a lot harder to go through than limestone. So you have to think about all of the big halls are probably in the limestone areas, and granite areas are confined to like narrow corridors and this kind of thing that they just have to get through. Where are the caves located? Because those would generally only be in limestone. All sorts of stuff. So we have to understand that. And this is just a map. And then if you turn around, that's the kind of theory. We'll put it that way. And then if I take you over here, so you see this big flying. If you fly up in the air, this is kind of a little bit hard to explain. But if you see this kind of black area, so these are the mountains of Moria in a kind of representative 3D format. And all of the different colors that you see are the different kinds of rock. So, so this red line you see here is the cross section of that. See that picture
of that map, right?
Saw?
So we're looking from down here. Okay,
yes.
so this is a scale map. So that little blue thing that I'm looking at down there, that's going to be like Khaled Zaram.
Correct. There you go. You nailed it. So that's kind of the big red peak here is predictably Karathras, which is made up of red granite, and then we have
Silvertine, Calebdil, Cloudy Head.
So Cloudy Head is this one over here.
Okay,
so this is just this on its own is just like a whole separate side project that's being done in support of what is going on in Moria, because we have these geologists who really understand how all of this stuff should work and look.
Right.
And again, this is just work that I think no one else has really ever done. Like I know that South and Fornad did some plans and maps of Moria and that kind of thing. And obviously you have Return to Moria and you have Lotro and stuff, but again, just our unique kind of flavor on the server means that we end up doing this in a way that probably other projects never would.
Yeah, deeply rooted in actual science, actual geology. That's wild.
Yeah, and it leads into all sorts of really fun conclusions and things that make us think weirdly that Tolkien really thought about this stuff. I know that's a weird thing to say, but you wouldn't think that he was thinking about geology, but actually we kind of, in some fun ways, things line up pretty well. Because all of so you know how when they go from the crossroads in Moria and then they go up that long winding corridor for like 8 hours, that it takes them forever, and then they get to the 21st hall. We think that long winding corridor is going through the heart of the mountains, which are made up of harder rock, granite, so on and so forth. Other interesting thing, when they come up into the 21st hall, the description is warm air is rising up from behind them and cold air is in front of them. And that's because this would actually happen. The tunnel going through the heart of the mountain would be warmed by geothermal heat. And then they come up into the 7th level, which is close to the surface. It has connections to the surface, so they'd have cold air coming in from the outside.
Right.
Again, it's kind of remarkable. It really did seem to be thinking about this stuff, and then it's really cool to actually model it all out and plan it all out and go, oh, okay, this actually lines up in a really fun and interesting.
That's pretty wild.
Way. Another thing that we literally just realized last night, and this will be my final thing before maybe we wrap up, which it kind of blew my mind, is that on the scale model of Moria that we've created, amazingly, the height of the Mirrormere, so that water table, has lined up pretty much perfectly with, when Gandalf falls from the bridge down the chasm and into the water of the...
Right, where the Balrog turns into like a wet snake,
Correct, yeah. Those two water levels are basically identical, and this is just lined up. It's incredible because when they come out of the East Gate, they're still high above the Mirrormere and they look down into the valley. So we think that the height between the East Gate and the Mirrormere is identical, almost exactly the same as the height that Gandalf falls down into that water, because that's where the water table is. That's where the water is sitting in the terrain. Again, just stuff that I was grinning from ear to ear when I realized this yesterday, because it just makes everything work and slot together in a really fun way. Anyway,
well, port us to one more like really eye candy place, and then we'll take some last questions as we wrap up. Okay.
I'll let you pick. Actually, Alan, do you have a location you want to see in mind? That you want to...
Rivendell. I definitely want to see Rivendell. Is there a place in Rivendell that I should check out more than any other?
Whoop Rivendell will take you where you need to go.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
This was, I think, the first place I ever saw.
And this is still your older version. You can tell it's a little lower detail.
It's a little lower detail, but I have to say, of all of the kind of slightly older builds, Rivendell's my favorite, because
it's really nice.
Rivendell, genuinely, and I'm not joking when I say this, there were 14 versions of Rivendell before we settled on this. Finished. But like concepts of how the house should be and the shape of the valley. So this was really perfected because Rivendell is, of course, such an iconic.
It's iconic, yeah. You have to get it right.
Yeah. And I'm still very proud of this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this and seeing, very much inspired by Tolkien's own art, and yeah, man, it's beautiful. That is, of course, I'm also seeing all the real world inspirations, like Switzerland, and even though I know Tolkien was never there, I can't help but see Yosemite here. Yosemite Valley, if anybody's ever been. In fact, this is almost a mirror image of Yosemite Valley. Like, take that big rock that's behind, that almost looks like the face of Half Dome. Just put that on the other side,
So the guy who led this project is a Californian geologist.
Okay,
so
nice.
Maybe that tells you some things.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah.
I mean, it looks like Yosemite Falls, and I mean, it's just, of course, that's one of my favorite places on Earth. So it's hard not to see that. But this is so pretty. Look at that. All right. Well, so currently, what's the biggest area that is being worked on right now, or like, what's most of the work hours being put in on that people will notice next? Like, what's the next thing people will see?
So Anorian, as we said today,
a place
we didn't get to go to today is the West March. So the western part of Rohan, where mixed Dunlending and Rohirric people.
Okay.
We saw them a little bit in actually the War of Lorien, those guys. So we're working on that area at the moment, and then the final area we're working on is, of course, Moria. You saw all the geology planning, but there's a whole load of other stuff going on in Moria at the moment. So those are the three major areas. We try to, as much as possible, have three things. So we have, dwarves, we have Rohirrim, or the Rohirric people, and Gondor. So we have these three different styles ongoing to keep the kind of interest there. There's a bit of variety for people at all times, and that's the kind of approach we take, and will be for the foreseeable future. So yeah.
Okay, let me just bring this back so we can kind of wrap up in our chat. And don't worry, you all don't have to be small here. I just have to figure out how to get my screen visible. Oh boy. Give me just a second, guys. Sorry about that. Having one monitor that I just toggle between the two sources works 90% of the time, but of course the one time that I wanted it to, it wasn't. So let me try. Well, since you're just a logo, we'll do
I should really have picked an ArdaCraft picture. Anyway, don't worry.
There we go, something like that. I'll just put you over here, James. All right. Let's take a look and see if there's any other questions in the chat that we want to call out real quickly. I'm not seeing anything real quick. Katie, anything that I should have answered real quick? Looks like we're probably okay. All right. Well, Jack, this was a lot of fun. And James, thank you for joining me today, man. This was fun to have you here on the PPP Plays. Always a pleasure to see you. And we'll be back again, or I will be back again on Tuesday to do it Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. I will be streaming at that point because folks are eager to get back into Lord of the Rings Online. We'll be streaming the adventures of Hilburn the River Hobbit. But the three of us, or at least two of us with Jack, will be back at some point in the future to do more in the world of ArdaCraft. So thank you so much for joining me, Jack and James. Appreciate you very much.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Is there anything before we go? Anything that folks in chat want to ask or know?
And if you miss, we have a Discord. People feel free to join. We have a website, all that stuff. So even if you're not a Minecraft player, feel free to join in on the Discord there and follow along.
I know that Katie's posted both Digital Tolkien and ArdaCraft's websites in the chat on both YouTube and Twitch. And so folks can go there. All right. Well, then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we will see you all next time. Catch you Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.